everybody, Tas101 Saga. Thought I'd give you the gift of my face. It's been a while. Review time. The lighting's very strong from one direction, can't do anything about that. Apologies if that's annoying. We're going to look at this guy today. This is the Snowwolf MP18. I've used it a few times now, quite a few times considerably over the last couple of years, getting on now. I must say immediately that mine is heavily modified. This is not how it looks or performs straight out of the box. There's a bit of confusion over what this actually is with some folk. Now, if you're doing a World War I kit, you can sort of get away with it. This is actually the MP18.1. Reason being, it's the post-war model. So this has the 30 round or 32 round, whatever it was, magazine. They also had shorter magazines for police units and stuff like that. The World War I model is going to have the distinctive snail drum from the Luger. It's what it originally comes from. So if you're looking for something that's absolutely spot on for World War I, this ain't it. But anything after that, yeah, you could get away with it. You could even use this as a close to a Lanchester type thing if you're doing a World War II British kit, which is part of the reason I got it. I haven't done the old brassy job, but not all of them have brass magwells and trunnions here. So you don't have to, but it's definitely an idea. So there's a few different kits you could do it for. So the MP18, bit of historical background, is kind of the first submachine gun that was actually used in combat. Some people debate saying the Italian Vela Perosa was actually the first, which is a funky looking contraption, but you know, I suppose in a way it was automatic, it was 9mm, so a submachine gun, viable cartridge. But this was sort of the first recognisable standard format submachine gun that was really employed by the Germans at the tail end of World War I. It was introduced too late to really have a big effect on the war, as everyone knows, but it sort of paved the way for the future. And post-war there's a lot of designs that's similar to this. This started the side-mounted magazine craze, which a lot of guns have used since, like the Sten, the Lanchester, the Japanese Type 100 series and so on. The MP28 is a direct descendant of this. It's got a nicer back sight and slightly different in some areas. But this is kind of the one that started it all, so historically speaking it's a very significant gun, and it's a very nice looking gun as well. Taste dependent, but I think it's a very nice looking gun. It does have some quirks though, and we'll talk about that, but first, butt to muzzle time. So the butt plate is metal and it comes in a black finish. I silvered mine because I like weathering everything. This one's particularly nice because it's like a lot of the Thompson butt plates. What I mean by that is it rotates to one side to expose the connector. So mine's set up on Dean's. I can't remember if it came with Dean's on it, probably not, but I convert everything to Dean's. Now, I often run 7.4 volt 1200 milliamp stick batteries in this. It will fit with a little bit of squishing of the wires. So you can fit stick battery and it doesn't have to be a brick. Although I do recommend the brick though, because it'll fit a little better. So one of the smaller batteries is the best thing, but you do have a fair bit of battery space as long as it's not a wide battery. So that's what you're seeing from the rear end. So there's your connector. And you've got plenty of space in there because the stock is obviously hollowed out. And then you simply just twist it back into place. No need to undo any screws. Moving to the rear stock, you've got a basic sling loop. Any sling that will fit in there will go in. They're pretty sturdy. Don't feel the need to replace it, just make sure the screws are in properly. In this case I've got a reproduction MP40 sling, which works fine. Moving forward you have the pistol grip, semi-pistol grip. You don't have to undo any of this to remove the receiver from the stock. I'll show you how to do that in just a moment. But they're just there for aesthetic. This is I believe the takedown button on the real one where it sort of hinges up in front of the stock. Moving forward you have the finger grooves cut out on the stock, which is pretty nice depending if you like to hold it there. My receiver has been completely stripped and re-blued, so it's going to look a lot blacker and sort of your typical painted airsoft gun finish when you get it. But the metal does take very well to bluing, and that's something I really like about this gun. It's very, very easy to refinish. As long as your prep work is good, this will blue very consistently. This is a fake return spring that I've added in there. That's just from an old gearbox spring that was hot. I chopped it to about this long. This being an AG, obviously all of that's irrelevant, but I like it to sort of look right. So that's easily possible. That's a good mod you can do if you want it to sort of look a little better. It's a bit difficult due to the shape of the gun and the tripod, but you get a little idea. I'll try and give you a good idea of the sight picture there. Just got your simple open back sight, just like the Mauser K98 really, very similar. You just got your little barleycorn front which sits in there. Then if you flip the sight to the longer range sight setting, it's just a little bit taller, so that's really the only difference. So later versions of this, when you start to get into MP28 territory, are going to have a much nicer adjustable ramp sight, a bit like the Mauser rifles and pistols is going to be sliding on a ramp up to 1,000 meters or something. That's completely ridiculous for a submachine gun, but you know, Germans. So on the right here, you've got the safety. That'll block the trigger. If you move it towards you, it's now on fire mode. Now I can't remember for the life of me which way is which on this selector, but you've got your single shot and auto respectively. This is your magazine release. It's just a push button like all other designs. Comes out, cams it on the way out and the way in, and there you go. Just make sure when you insert it, like any mag, it's actually locked in, so just give it a nice shove till it clicks. There is no significant magazine wobble on this. It's very, very minor, not to the point where it's going to affect anything whatsoever. It's a very sturdy magazine setup and feeding setup. I've never had a single issue with it. The stock rate of fire of this gun is pretty slow, so it's nice and realistic that way. If you keep the stock gears and you just make sure it's serviced, it's going to give you that nice slow chug 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 of the original, as long as you're using like a 7.4 or something that isn't too high voltage. So the barrel jacket is very nice, got this lovely sort of ported design to allow her heat dispersion from the real thing and also to protect your hand. Also known colloquially in America as the shoulder thing that goes up. Furthermore, you can actually grip it. It gives you a lot better direction of the muzzle, because the further forward your hand is on a firearm in general, it's going to control the muzzle better. You can of course hold it at the finger grooves, but it's much better in my experience to do it this way, because due to the location of the mag well, you can actually rest the magazine and the housing sort of on your arm like that. Up front you got the front sight, which very nicely is adjustable for windage. There is a little screw in the front above the muzzle. If you loosen that, you can sway this to the left or the right depending on how off your windage is, but it allows quite a fair bit of margin for error, more than you'll probably ever get with an airsoft gun. To get basic access to the hopper, of course you can just adjust it. You don't have to disassemble the gun to adjust it, it's just a dial in there. On the standard gun you have to hold the cocking handle and the bolt back to access it. On mine of course I can just do it whenever. So it's a simple dial in there. The hop-ups are very good, especially when you upgraded it. I've got a ZCI in a barrel with a Prometheus rubber standard, and it's got plenty of range. Easily hits the 60 meters, no problem at all. For a submachine gun, that's really all you need. This is your takedown screw of course, so just use any sort of flathead. Just use my knife in this case. Once you've removed that, all you really have to do is just slide the receiver forward. You don't have to worry about anything else. So once you've loosened that screw, just take that out, and now you can basically just pull the whole thing apart like that. So you can get access to your quick change spring here. You just remove a couple of screws, and then there's a screw on the back, and this little piece will pop off, and then you can just sort of turn the spring guide and pop it out like you do with anything really, pretty simple. And then at this point your hop unit and in the barrel is basically just loose in there, so you can just slide that out the back of the receiver. Obviously make sure that when you put it back in that it's actually lined up properly. There's little grooves inside the chamber. You'll see it when you got it in front of you. So it should sit like that, so the actual feed shaft of the hop chamber is facing obviously to the left, so it will work with the magazine. To put it back together, literally just sort of drop it all in there, and as long as your hop chamber is lined up properly, it will just sort of push it all back into place like that. The magazines are mid caps. They hold about 100 rounds, like any mids, just loading in the top there. About 100 rounds from what I remember. They're advertised as 100 rounds. You can carry a bunch of them before the weight adds up, but they're not super light mags. They're not like as light as the MP40 mags, for example. But they're very sturdy. If you want to disassemble them, there's basically just a little pin there, and the whole inners just sort of pop out, but no reason to do that unless there's something wrong with it. But yeah, in my experience, very good mags. I've never had an issue with them of any sort. So that leads me on to a couple of things. Ergonomics and my personal experiences. So in terms of ergonomics, it's not the most balanced gun, as I mentioned regarding the weight and because of the hand placement. So you do have finger grooves here on the stock, as I pointed out. You can use that option if you wish. It does get a little front heavy because most of the mat is up front. This is like steel, surprisingly, as I said from Snowwolf, so it is pretty weighty up front, and it is a little balanced, as you can see there. off balance to the left, naturally because it's got the side mounted magazine. Now these magazines are, I wouldn't say they're really heavy, but they're not light either, so it definitely adds an imbalance. What I find the most comfortable thing to do, whether you've got the sling or not, in my case I do, so I just put that under my hand. I tend to use it like this. This is the best sort of format, I think, because you're sort of controlling the weight and the muzzle better. You can of course go for the finger grooves if you wish. Don't do any of this, don't do any of that. I mean, you can, these mags are not wobbly in the well, so it's not going to affect the feeding. I've tried it, I tried to make it jam or misfeed, it doesn't. But it's just generally not done like this. This is the better way. So in terms of ergos, yeah, you do have that slight off balance, and forget trying to use it one-handed for any sort of length of time if you're doing something with your other hand, because it does want to tip forward. It is not a balanced gun, as you can see. It just wants to go everywhere if you sort of put your hand in the middle. But the benefit of that, as mentioned, it's got very good sturdy construction to it. You can bash this around, it's not going to care. Don't bash it around too hard with the wood because it is a soft wood, it's not a hard wood. But it does take to stain well, as you can see. Being that the rest of it is basically all metal, yeah, you can beat the hell out of it. It's a pretty sturdy gun. There's no points on it that I would be specifically worried about were going to break under pressure or anything like that. So it can take a little bit of beating, which is definitely a good thing for skirmishing. There's a downside to everything, of course, and that is the imbalance. But if that doesn't really bother you, that's fine. If you are a bit picky about guns being balanced in the right way, you probably won't like this because it is quite a weighty gun. There's a lot of metal on it. It does want to tip sort of forward and to the left, so if you're fussy about stuff like that, you're probably not going to like this very much. However, it is massively more comfortable than this guy, alright? Yeah, love it or hate it, the Sten does the job, but the Sten is very uncomfortable. So if you ever feel like this is a bit of an awkward, uncomfortable gun, just carry a Sten for barely 10 minutes and you'll instantly feel better. This is much more one of the Cadillac's submachine guns, back when they were all machined high quality pieces before they went to sort of the Second World War. I think they refer to it as like second or third generation submachine guns, which are all sort of stamped steel. They started to have less wood on them as time went on, but this is one of the early designs that's still got all those nice characteristics. So it does have that going for it. Absolutely wonderful aesthetic as well. In terms of my personal experiences, upgrading the hop rubber and the inner barrel works wonders. I haven't done anything else to it besides service the gearbox and shim it out of the box because it was very bad and very whiny and the motor needs to be adjusted. But once you've done all that, as long as it's lubricated properly and it's got a good seal and everything, it's absolutely fine. I really enjoyed using it. It's got very good range. The fact that you can drift the front sight as well, if it's shooting slightly off, mine was shooting slightly to the left, so I drifted that over and now it shoots dead on the sights. You got two sighting options as well, of course, so if for some reason your sight has got the 200 metre sight, the real sight there, for 200 metres, and it's shooting a bit high, you can drop that down and that'll bring it down nicely. At the end of the day, it is a submachine gun, so if you're trying to break records with it, it's not really the point. Although saying that, ironically, this has got more range than some of my actual longer rifles, which is very bizarre, considering it's only a short barrel. Not that barrel length makes all the difference in airsoft. You just sort of assume that it wouldn't be the case, but actually it doesn't really make much difference. All that matters really when you're building AGs is to have good parts. I've never had an issue with the gun sort of crapping itself on the single shot and having to switch it to auto, nothing like that. In terms of carry, you can carry it on your back if you're running another gun. I've done that. I've ran the Smelly and this at the same time because I'm just a bit weird like that. There are lighter options though. If you want to carry a submachine gun as a backup, I'd probably go with the Sten, just because the weight is less. It's a lot less to carry around, or an MP40 as a simulated capture gun or whatever if you're doing a British kit. So you got those options there, but I've had a lot of fun with this actually for what it is. It actually performed way better than I was expecting. I mostly bought it because I just loved the look of it and thought I'll probably use it. So once I found some magazines for it, I've got a total of, I think it's 6 of these. Bought 5 additional. They're a little hard to find depending on where you're looking. But they do fit into P37 British pouches for anyone who's interested. They don't close well though, unless you've got the sort of the Mark IIIs that are a little bit longer to accommodate the Sten gun magazines which were coming out sort of early to mid-war. They will fit Thompson 30 rounders fine, but these are a little bit longer, at least in airsoft form. So you can't close it. I can't close it in my case, but when you got 4 in there sort of stacked side by side, it works well anyway. They don't tend to come out because the canvas sort of comes all the way to about there. so you don't have any problems with that. They will not fit in MP40 pouches, at least not the ones I've got. Nice quality for what, definitely lovely quality for what you're paying. The metal takes very well to bluing, as long as you do your prep work properly. The stock takes very well to stripping and restaining, so there's loads of potential to make this look as good as you want, really. I went all out, as you see, with the open bolt simulated and everything, so because I'm like that. Changing the springs pretty easy. Getting the hop unit and barrel out, as you saw, was very easy. So there's not a lot of cons to it really, other than the stuff I just mentioned. It just sort of comes down to your preference in terms of weight balance, if you're able to carry it all day. I've handed it to people who wanted to have a hold, and the first thing a lot of them said was, "Christ, how'd you carry that all day?" So if you're one of those that's easily overwhelmed by heavy stuff, probably not for you. I'd go with a lighter option like an MP40 or something like that. So final conclusion then, do I recommend it? If you're really after one of these, absolutely, because there's not another option for it, for a start. And if you want a gun that just looks really cool in the field and is a bit unique, yeah, definitely go for it. If you want something that's actually practical, has decent mid-caps and everything, yeah, go for it. It's not impossible to find magazines, it can be a little difficult, but once you've found them, you've got them. They tend to last pretty well. I've never had a single issue with this in terms of feeding, reliability, nothing. It's been absolutely fine. I would recommend servicing it out of the box though, or getting someone to do it, because when it comes it sounds pretty awful. And I don't know if that's good for your gear life either, because it's not shimmed properly out of the box like a lot of guns. Cons, balance, weight, that will be a con for some. Doesn't really bother me because I just accept it for what it is. Of course it's not perfect. It's a gun dated back to prior to 100 years ago, so it's not going to have the ergonomics, weight and balance of a modern gun. It's just not going to happen, because it's a totally different world, a totally different method of gun design and how the gun was utilised compared to the present day. So you have to sort of be in the zone to enjoy this kind of thing, I think. So once again, that is all for now. Thanks very much for watching. As always, questions are welcome. Feel free to rate, comment and subscribe if you would like. You do get a choice of me, that's nice. I can't make you do anything.